This is Mark Anderson for Kellogg Community College, and we are going to look at doing some compositions. Compositions involve substitution at this early level, which means that we are going to take our two functions. Here's f and here's g, and we are going to subtract these two functions from each other. But before we do, we are going to plug 5 into the x value of the function of x. And then we're going to also, before we subtract these two functions, plug 5 into g's x, or g of x. So what we're going to have is we're going to have f of 5, whoa, come on, pen, f of 5, which is 4 times 5 squared, minus 3 times 5 minus 5. And we're also going to have our g of 5, which is going to be 2 times 5 minus 5. Now let's evaluate this. 5 squared is 25 times 4 is 100. Come on, pen. There we go. And then 3 times 5 is 15. And then 5 is just 5. So we've got 100 minus 15 minus 5 is 80. This is f of 5. Now here I've got 2 times 5, which is 10. And 10 minus 5 is going to be 5. So my g of 5 is 5. So my f of 5 minus g of 5, which it says for us to do here, is going to be 80 minus 5, which is 75. So my answer to this problem is 70. Whoops, come on, pen. 75. So that's how we do the problem. We evaluate what that is going to be at that moment where the x's, in this case, they just happen to be the same. So I'm going to figure out my f of 2 by plugging in 2 into all of the corresponding spaces for x. And then, whoops, I put an x there instead of a 2. And then I'm going to do my g of 2. So this is going to be 2 times 2 minus 5. So here I have 4 times 4, which is 16. 16 minus 6 minus 5 is going to give me an answer of 5. So my f of 2 is equal to 5. And here my answer is going to be 4 minus 5. So my g of 2 is going to be 4 minus 5, which is negative 1. If I add f of 2 plus g of 2, it's adding 5 plus negative 1, which is an answer of 4. So this is my f of 2 plus g of 2. The answer is 4. Now here I'm going to multiply these two, but I'm going to plug negative 1 into each of these functions. So this is going to be 4 times negative 1 squared minus 3 times negative 1 minus 5. This is my f of negative 1. And my g of negative 1 is going to be equal to 2 times negative 1 minus 5. So negative 1 squared is 1. 1 times 4 is 4. Negative 3, or negative 1 times 3 with a minus in front of it is going to be minus a negative 3, or technically positive 3. And then the minus 5 is there. So 4 plus 3 is 7. 7 minus 5, f of negative 1 is 2. So now my g of negative 1, 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, minus 5 is negative 7. So my g of negative 1 is going to be our negative 7. So if I multiply f times g, that's 2 times negative 7. And 2 times negative 7 is negative 14. So that's my answer of multiplying f and g together after plugging negative 1 in for my x values of f and g. Okay, so now in this problem you'll note that the g and the f is still getting divided here, but you notice it's still negative 1, so if I did plug my negative 1 into f and g, I would still get the same equations. My f is negative 1, my g is negative 7. Oh, sorry, no. My f of negative 1 is 2, and my g of negative 1 is negative 7. So I have to use the problem to tell me what order I should do this to. So I'm going to go g divided by f, so negative 7 divided by 2, or negative 3.5, or negative 3.5. That is my answer. And again, watch the order, g divided by f. So if you put down 2 over negative 7, you did f over g, not g over f. So let's now take a look at our last 4 problems here. Again, doing the same thing except with bigger results. In this case, you should plug 5 into your equation here. And in fact, you know, it might be easier or it might be nicer if you used technology for this. So let's actually use our calculator to kind of help us out with this kind of a problem. So here I have my x squared, so this is going to be 5 squared plus 3 times 5 plus 4. So there's my f of 5. And then we're going to go with my g of 5, move that over a little bit. So here I have 5 squared minus 3 times 5 plus 6. So there's my f of 5, here's my g of 5, and I get an answer of 16. And if I subtract these two, because that's the operator right there, 44 minus 16 is 28. Great, so now I can write down my answer. Now, I really do feel it's best to put this work down on your paper in case that you make a typo. You can actually show your professor or teacher that you did the work, or know what the work entitles. So whenever you type something in on a calculator, if it involves showing no work, well, show what you typed in. That little step right there can save you many points on the test if you make a typo. Now we're going to do g of 2 and f of 2. But watch my shortcut here. I'm going to go second enter, and second enter, which takes me all the way back to my f equation. And instead of typing in a 5, I'm going to click 2 over the 5's, little overstrike here. So this, my friends, becomes the f of 2. Now if I hit second enter 3 times, this takes me back to my g of x. So if I change that to a 2, I now have my g of 2. So there's 14 plus 4, and I don't even need to type that in because my f of 2 plus g of 2 is going to be 18. Now we're going to look at this using a negative 1. Now, unfortunately, since there's only one space here, it's going to be easier for me to just retype this again. So here's my f of negative 1, okay, plus 3 times my negative 1, plus 4. Now this is my letter f. It looks like my f of negative 1 is 2. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use second enter and do little modifications because my g of x is pretty close because it's an x squared. It's a minus 3, not a plus 3, so I'll change that to a subtraction sign by moving my cursor back and changing it to a minus. And I'm going to put a 6 here, and then there it is, 2 and 10. Now I'm supposed to multiply f times g, and 2 times 10 is 20. Now if I'm going to divide these two, I have to remind ourselves, okay, which one was g, which one was f? Okay, this 10 was g, and this f was 2. So by dividing in that order of 10 divided by 2, my answer for this is 5. So to go and now freeze this and write down my answers here, the answer for this problem was 28. The answer to this problem was 18. You just saw that these two equations are for these two problems here, multiplying the two together, the 2 times 10, and dividing g divided by f, because this is our g and this is our f. This is going to be 10 divided by 2, which is 5. All right, thank you for watching part 1. Part 2 is coming up, so please continue to watch if you've got questions about compositions in this quadratic unit. Thank you.